Say hi, everyone.
Wow.
So we got you guys on audio. It's on my phone, so we're gonna do our best to try to maneuver around the same complications we had in Norway. So we're gonna talk into the phone, but also on the microphone. Can you guys hear it okay on your end?
Yeah, you're coming through loud and clear here. Thanks, Brian.
Loud and clear? You guys hear good? Okay, good. So
I'm getting a lot of feedback, a lot of echo.
Lot of echo. Okay, well, when we're not talking, I'll mute. And tell me if there's echo when you guys talk. Hold on.
Hey, Mel, Sacha here.
Hey, Sacha.
I'm still hearing a lot of echo.
So, we're having this brilliant chat on Unity, and we thought we'd pull you guys in.
Right.
You know, Sacha, we just got done playing your New Earth Project video. You got a very loud round of applause here again for everyone really excited about what you and your group are doing. And Mel, I explained that we would have to save the description of the Swiss Endo thing to another day because we just didn't have enough time to cover it. But most of the people in the room are familiar with both of your guys' work, but really what we want to do is just kind of have a free flow conversation and just chat about what we're all doing as far as independently, and then ultimately what we can do to start collaborating. I told the group about Mel our conversation from the other day that we had. Do you want to, from your perspective, kind of summarize what some of what we spoke about there as far as what we decided that could be an action step in moving forward?
Sure, of course. Brian, first off, who am I talking to? I don't even know where the audience are.
Oh, we are coming to you live from Panama City Beach, Florida.
Wow.
We're in a Unity church.
Wow. Okay, well, hello to everybody there, and it's so great to be connected across the world. And one of the great things about this day and age is that you can literally reach out and touch the life or connect with or share information with absolutely anybody around the world. And just the fact that we are joining you all tonight is a perfect example of just how each and every one of us can make the effort in reaching out and bringing unity. All the people that I've been, whether it's Lisa, whether it's Brian, or even Sacha, I have met them through different ways, on different paths, but ultimately working towards the same ultimate purpose. Sacha I met last year at the Breakthrough Energy Movement Conference, which was held in Amsterdam. That was in November 2012. Lisa, I met Lisa. I actually approached Lisa after I saw one of her interviews and realized she's probably one of the most astute interviewers out there, and someone who gained a huge amount of respect for me right from the get-go. And of course, I got to know Brian Kelly when I became aware of the OPPT stuff and became friendly with Heather Tucci Giraffe. And just in being what I do with Freedom Central and doing what I do, having gone down these individual roads, met these individual people, it's now occurred to me, and through the conversations I've had with various people very recently, how important it is now for all of us doing our various bits of work, whatever it may be, that we pull together and start bringing a unified front to this search for freedom, because we certainly can't do it alone. We've all got great ideas, we've all done the research, we all know how to go about this, but we cannot do it alone. Every man for himself has never worked, and it's about time we've all start pulling it together, and I guess this is the reason we've all decided to join in on this tonight.
Beautiful. Well, Mel, what does your vision for the future look like for Mel V?
Wow, sure. You know, Brian, so many people, I've asked so many people that question, and I guess really I look at it from a personal perspective of I am now 37, I've been married for 12 years, and I want to have kids. But I've not yet been able to bring myself to do it in 12 years of marriage, simply because I've recognized that my children simply can't expect to inherit a fair, just, peaceful, sustainable world unless that is a fair expectation for every other child on this planet. So that's what it looks like for me, is let's obviously start bringing that reality about. Let's start making that an expectation. Let's start giving that freedom to humanity. Let's start bringing it for ourselves and creating it for the next generation. You know, we are the people we've been waiting for, and certainly the children that we want to bring into the world must be the ones who can take this forward. So I think the world for me going forward is looking at creating great education systems that are not benign and, you know, retarding to the mind. It's creating sustainable environments. It's creating great renewable, sustainable energy sources. And of course, making, you know, basic services and things like basic medicines and basic health care, all, you know, virtually available to everybody, but not the pharmaceutical junk that we're pumped with, you know, holistic, natural, long, life-giving healthcare. And the same with food, re-educating people on how to feed themselves. And, you know, I just think that there's a whole re-education process that needs to go on here. So it's up to everybody to find each individual little part. And mine has really been in the, you know, whatever small part it may be, just jump into the alternative media world, create a bit of, you know, info, stick it out there, and, you know, whatever that might mean to somebody, hopefully it might heal a perception here, change a life there, and that's all it's ever been about for me. And in doing that, I think we are getting there, you know, and we're making those connections through each and every little part that we play to this.
Yes, and they're all important pieces, and no one individual or group has them all. How about you, Sacha? Vision for the future.
Yeah, my vision is fairly comprehensively laid out, and it's called the New Earth Project, so I don't really need to go I don't think I need to go into too much detail. But of course, I love Mel, and I love everything she says, but I would also underscore the need to de-educate ourselves as opposed to educate, and to remember our beauty and our majesty and who we truly are, and to revisit all that we think we know. And in so doing, perhaps suspend ideas of what the future might look like and actually address the present, address the now in an absolute sense, and engage with notions such as bliss and serendipity and heartfulness and mindfulness. And these majestic aspects of the human condition can only be realized if we are sitting in the present and truly engaging with our footsteps. What am I doing today to innovate that vision into manifestation? What am I thinking? What are my thought forms? What are the words that come out of my mouth? How am I contributing at the fractal level, at the scalar level, at the energetic level to manifesting that vision in the now? I seriously believe that humanity has had a predisposition for dreaming for many millennia and for envisioning a greater world, a greater horizon. We've done that for millennia. And I don't know that it has actually served us as well as it could have, precisely because we have not yet been able to engage with ourselves in the now and own the actuation of our hearts and our minds in the present. So I don't want to get into a Zen tutorial here, but I just want us all to remember that as well as holding great visions, we have to anchor those visions in a living, breathing present.
Excellent. You know, one of the things that we talked about here earlier, you know, is that within humanity and within all the people, we have all of the tools. We have all of the solutions to create this world and to create it right now. You know, there's technologies that exist and skill sets within the people that we could truly start with. Like one of the things that you said in your video, Sacha, is that with the consent of the people of the world, these things all become possible. And so one of the comments that I received from from those out there that are skeptical that, we have the ability to make true progress and build into this new paradigm now, is that there's too many people in the world that are still sleeping. It's going to take too long to wake everybody up. Mel and or Sacha, or both of you, what do you see as being, if we really start to push on this front of unity and a common vision, what's the element in both of your minds and hearts that allows us to set the stage for outreach, to let people know in the world, in all the tucked away corners of the world and in our backyards, what's going on and how they can get involved?
Do you want to hit that, Mel, or do you want me to?
You go first, Sacha.
Okay, well, there's two things. And again, going back to the spiritual dimension, when we are in our centers and we are in alignment, so to speak, we have a capacity then, these subtle levels of consciousness, to engage with people around us, our families, our communities, our societies, our nations, and the planet at large. And at that subtle level, we're able to affect change by anchoring pure vision and so on. So on the one hand, I would suggest that if we are serious about broadcasting noble expression to the world, that we have to be in that center and do so in the living present. But if you're talking about how do we engage with the world at large in the explicit sense, then obviously we're needing to make use of the World Wide Web and technology to do that. Let me just throw a little sideboard curveball here. In the last 24 hours, the whole of the United Kingdom has come to a standstill. I don't know if any of you have seen the BBC headlines, but no aeroplanes have been able to take land effectively today. And that is because there was a quote-unquote glitch in the telephone network connecting all of the airports of Britain. And that's caused a $1 billion standstill of all air traffic. It does make us consider that there are powers that be who have the capacity to hit switches. And the world telecom circuitry can come to a standstill effectively. It is not a safe thing to imagine that we can connect the community through technology. The solar flares that are emanating at the moment and on the increase, and which will be on the increase for the foreseeable future, are also liable to cause massive electromagnetic pulse, charge, and disruption to the EM grid of the Earth, and subsequently the technosphere is in dire threat. So that's something you need to be mindful of. I remember speaking to Jose Arguelles, the great Mayan shaman, who was the man who decoded the long count Solkan and put 2012 on the map effectively. And he was warning me about this many years ago. But it's a consideration. To get back to the practical answer, Ryan, what we're addressing within the New Earth project, and we're very keen to engage with you guys on, is the portal that we're launching. Actually, we're launching the first phase in 3 months' time. And the second phase will launch in April, start of April 2014. But that portal we're building out now is a multi-people touchstone for people and communities all around the planet. And I honestly think it's going to be the most comprehensive touchstone for bringing people together. It's also the uniformed gateway that we're creating to invite people all around the world to sign that declaration of sovereignty and establish their own corporate record, and then establish the proxy and lead their individual courts of record and declarations of sovereignty into a unified one, which is de facto New Earth Nation, which we are launching next year, and that will then represent the interests of people and communities under God's law of natural justice. It will enforce it with its own law commission, which we've already established, under a tribunal of International Tribunal of Natural Justice, and so on. So these are all aspects to the greater conversation which we're very much looking forward to having with you guys in March at our those locations.
Awesome. Mel, do you want to elaborate? Do you want to touch on that one as well?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much going on, so many different fronts, and it's so great that we're actually talking. And a few of the things that I really do want to touch on, because they're areas in which I've paid specific attention to. And these are really going to be the cornerstones of what we're building going forward. And that is going to be, obviously, the law side of things, which Sacha's already touched on, and I've been quite intricately involved with. And they are at the moment actually having common law grand juries in the United States. So these structures are already being put into place, and the practicalities are already rolling out. These things are already happening, people. And that's the great thing, is it's already getting going. It's not now we're still talking about it. These things are actually happening. And these grand jury verdicts are now coming about and are being rendered. So there is movement in this direction. There's wonderful material being put together by lots of amazing people, and as Sacha said to me, I spoke to him, I think it's a week or so ago, and interviewed him. He says he called himself an architect and a source code, and there are so many architects and source code coming out from these amazing people doing amazing work, and we're putting it all together now. And this is, I guess, the whole point of what we're doing, is this unity and the collaboration and a collection of the absolute data to find the most refined way of creating the ultimate peaceful, just, and sustainable society. And there's no way we're going to get it all right the first time. Rome wasn't built in a day, and it certainly ain't going to be deconstructed in a day, but it has to be deconstructed first, and we do need to repurpose some of the old structures that are there. And I guess as well, this is some of where, when I was speaking to Sacha, a lot of our perception has to shift. You got the very asleep people who don't know what the hell's going on and still go and vote for Obama. You got the people who've woken up and realized 9/11 is an inside job, but they're very stuck in duality. There's the good guys and the bad guys, and then you've got sort of the people who have probably emotionally, spiritually matured a bit more into this information and beginning to understand, all right, if we are truly going to make a difference on this planet, now's the time we need to put aside all the hatred, all the anger, and actually realize that, some of these people who are working in the highest places actually probably want a way out. And now's the time to reach out to them. Now's the time to repurpose the old structures that are there. We can't actually completely destroy everything that's there and start from scratch. We simply just won't be able to function. We are going to have to repurpose the existing structures into structures and people-orientated mechanisms that aren't cannibalizing and using the individual to manipulate each other in order to survive. So this is where I see us going next, and it's happening. We're watching it happen. We're watching people within various high-up organizations. You mentioned Swiss Indo earlier, Brian. Yes, Swiss Indo is a good example of how parts of the United Nations have actually been used for the benefit of the people and are actually being repurposed. So there is all this going on. And of course, Sacha himself, through his work with Humanitat, has actually worked with the United Nations as well. And he has assured me, when I was still banging on about how bad the United Nations were, he was telling me, there are good people there. There are people who go into the United Nations wanting to make a difference, and they're just as despondent. Now is the time that we need to be reaching out and building these bridges, because I think everybody's starting to realize that, things can't get much worse. If we don't actually start doing something about it, we are in a very dire situation. Every day, people are losing their homes. We've got, 50,000 children a day dying of starvation and preventable illnesses in Africa. To me, being from South Africa, that to me is not acceptable. I don't see how a truly evolved society can neglect its poorest and its weakest and its most vulnerable. I think if we are truly going to evolve as a society and we're going to build ourselves into that place where we need to be looking to be going, we need to start focusing on those people who have nothing and who perhaps need our help the most.
This is Bob, Wright, Mel, and Sacha. One of the things that I wanted to highlight is the difference about right now, as in any other time, is the world is connected in a way that has never been connected before. We have the ability to communicate all over the globe instantaneously. We also have technology that's available, and we have the ability to do things that in the past were never even conceived of as being possible. There's a lot of things that we really don't need to focus on. And one is that the deconstruction of the system, it's kind of doing that on its own. We can hurry it along, but I think if you sneeze hard enough, a lot of these structures will fall and implode upon themselves. What we decided, as a group, that we were going to focus on building something to move into. Not on focusing on deconstructing the old, but repurposing, just like you said, and moving into something that, is more sustainable and more available, that people can literally step into another paradigm. And this is what I know is possible. And these may be big claims, but I think we all know what we don't want. I'm looking forward to a time where no resident will ever say, I am sick. Where no one ever has to worry about how am I going to survive till my next paycheck. Where every person, every man, woman, and child who was ever born on earth, their survival and sustenance, clothing, food, clothing, shelter, and basic needs are assured. That they're not conditional upon what tax bracket you might be born into, what part of the world you may be born into. I believe that all of that technology is possible right now. We have it. The only thing is that we've been living in structures that have controlled the distribution, the dissemination of information, so that people have become so focused on surviving that they don't even know that there is an alternative available. So by coming together, with the Ubuntu movement, with the New Earth Project, with Fix the World, and all these different things that are working towards building that new society, I believe that all we need to do is point, this is where you can go. You can step in.
Well, I think that's beautiful. It's so lovely hearing you say this. You're so right. All of those technologies and those approaches to remediate our social ecology have hitherto been forced into the existing paradigm. They've been forced into the existing marketplace. They've been forced into the existing infrastructures. Meaning to say, anyone who came up with a great macroeconomic reformation plan was forced to sit down with the House of Rothschild and the Canaanite bankers, and was then forced to issue their own ideas within an existing toxic framework. So they never actually manifested any paradigm shift. Anyone who came up with any technological breakthroughs and innovations was forced into the patent office scenario and then into the compliance and regulatory provisions, which are all eagle-eyed and ensure that nothing paradigm shifting will actually get to the marketplace. So any brilliant ideas, any true breakthrough genius was never able to eventuate into the actual social ecology because of the proverbial psycho-intellectual condom that was provisioned and placed there by what I call the Babylonian priesthood. Okay, and so now we need to address the question of sovereignty and of stepping outside of all of that imposed jurisdiction, because that's been the problem. So when we simply hit that trigger internally, all of us, and go, hang on, back the hell up. What are we doing? Continuously imagining that we can repurpose or reposition or reorient the game when it's taking place on the same old playing field. We have to actually leave the playing field altogether, no longer recognized in any way, shape, or form, and begin to redefine what a playing field is. And I think that that's where what we're all talking about, the flashpoint that brings all of us together, and why we keep talking lately, and why we're going to continue talking, and we're going to work through this Rubicon together. It's really that. We're entering into the transmutative, transcendental imperative of this conversation, this narrative. And that is telling us that we need to step out of the fox's garden, so to speak, to use my favorite term at the moment, and start to build our own garden. And we can all do that. but it is that unified planetary, supranational, extraterritorial declaration, unified declaration of sovereignty, where we step out, establish our own universal court of record or planetary court of record under consensus of right-minded, heartful human beings, under a covenant of fellowship. So again, leaving the invisible contracts with corporate nation states and stepping into a covenant of fellowship. To my mind, it really keeps...
Sacha, did I tell you today that I love you? I absolutely love you.
That's very kind.
Agreed. What he just said, I agree. And in order to do that, you know, what we really need to focus on is coordinating our efforts together. And I think that's, you know, one of the historical things that we're doing right now in communicating these ideas to all of these separated, you know, compartmentalized groups and organizations, to let them know that they're not alone, and that, you know, when we come all together, most of the work is already done. We just really need to do the work of rebuilding what it is that we want. We all know what we don't want. We don't want hierarchy anymore. We don't want control. We don't want borders. We don't want money, you know, to separate and segregate and isolate us into this, like you said, Babylonian paradigm that we've all been born into. So, you know, we had talked about, you know, coming together in Morocco and forming a sustainable community and using it as a model for what can be done around the planet. And I imagine these communities going up all over the world, and I think it can be done very quickly.
Yes.
Because the infrastructure is already there. You know, the Bible talks about the meek inheriting the earth. That means that there had to be something there that we inherit. We don't have to rebuild it. We inherit what's already there. We repurpose it and we use it for what it is that is sustainable, what it is that we really want to see. So how can people who are awakening to this idea, you know, get involved? How can they contribute their energy, you know, and what mechanism can we use in order to get the average everyday person who's sitting at home, you know, wondering what it is that I personally can do in order to help?
I'd like to quickly say something, if I may, because it's so important what you just brought up. You said, what are the mechanics? And I would tell you, if we're going to speak in terms of foundational mechanics, there are things like the time signature that has been interposed on humanity, again, by the Jesuit code, by the so-called Holy Roman Empire. The 1260 time signature is highly toxic to human spirit, highly toxic to planetary rhythms, human biorhythms. The fact that we have that time code and time zones fractured and broken up all around the planet as a dominoes in allegiance to that 1260 time code. What that has served to do over a very long period of time historically is to fracture the zeitgeist, fracture the mindset of humanity, and interpose that Babylonian metric onto the human family, so that we're out of natural resonance. We don't know when the sun's going to rise, when it's going to go down, when we should plant the corn, when we should harvest. We were actually disconnected planetarily from our innate and intrinsic intuitive connection to the Earth rhythms and the celestine rhythms of our solar system. This is a well-documented science I'm talking about here. So our capacity now to wake up and realize that so long as we continue to volunteer into not just servitude and wage slavery and paying taxes and all that ghastly nonsense, but the fact that we're also in allegiance to imposed mind spelling of epic proportions, like the 1260 time coding. We need to introduce a new one. If you look at the foundation for the law of time and what the great and goodly work of the Mayans and Hopis and others, there are other time frequencies and time signatures that we should be looking at. certainly I can tell you that in the first quarter of next year, with New Earth and the New Earth Nation, so to speak, we are launching a new time signature. And that is going to, I think, am I still online? Because I've just heard someone drop off.
No, Sacha, I think they've dropped off. Let me call them back again on this thread. Oh, there's Brian.
Hey, sorry. We lost you guys for a second. Somebody called in. Damn iPhone. Interrupt Skype.
Are we back on?
We're back on.
Good.
Okay, so that was the one metric I wanted to speak about, which was the time signature. And the ramifications are huge. When we step out of that imposed time signature, we start to default into our natural resonant meridia, our natural resonant connection to Earth, biorhythms, and to the movement of the planets in our solar system. And there is a connectivity there that needs to re-engage. And this is connected to our junk DNA. This is connected to our so-called ascension coding, our immortal paradigm, and so on. And the Edenic principles that we lost in the so-called fall. But let's not go into that here. Another mechanic or metric that we need to address is sound. If all instruments and all radio stations and all television stations around the world started to conform to the 432 hertz frequency, the healing frequencies, we would have instantaneous illumination around the planet. We would throw the Babylonian serpent on its back instantaneously through sound and sound frequency alone. But again, we have had false frequencies interposed on us and have been used to sustain and maintain a fear matrix for the absence of the capacity for the noosphere to actually engage. So that's another mechanical consideration that we really need to get in tune with. And thirdly, and arguably most importantly, is the AC, electrical currencies that we use, and the frequencies innate in electricity as we understand it today is highly toxic to the human bioform and to planetary wellness. So we've got the mutation of human genome underway at a macro level all around the planet because of Wi-Fi, because of the electrical values that again have been foisted onto us. Tesla was onto this a long time ago and knew that we could be using effectively cold electricity. Electricity where a kiddie puts their finger into a plug point and does not get a shock. But that electrical value is actually healing to the environment, healing to the human family. So again, these are simple things that we can actually begin to deploy within and amongst our homes, our communities, and we're going to be starting that in this year, 2014, coming up, within the New Earth communities, which we've already begun master planning in, as you know, about 40 countries now. That ends my sermon.
Sacha, one of those metrics that you mentioned, I've recently come into some information. Michael Jackson was planning on doing that with his tour, where he was literally making music at 432 hertz. He was going to use it as he went across the world to help wake the world up.
Yes.
And we see what happened to him.
That's correct.
But these are simple adjustments that can be made that have profound effects on the human psyche and the human biology that I think anyone can agree with, that we can implement tomorrow if we all agreed that we wanted to do that.
Indeed.
Another thing, is that all of us working here together, we have to collectively decide to stop doing what doesn't resonate with us. And that's something everyone personally has to take the responsibility to do. To stop engaging in what we know does not work. And that also has a profound effect because the system as it's structured, it requires the cooperation of all the parts. And once people stop cooperating with that system, the system has an extreme problem. It cannot function, it can't move forward. So I would add to that, people need to not necessarily focus on what to do, but immediately stop doing what you know does not work.
Good stuff.
Disengaging from those structures and disengaging from that paradigm.
Wonderful. You know, one of the only ingredients, it's loud, that it's, well, really the only ingredient that continues to allow these old systems to operate, the only ingredient is fear. You know, the fear of the consequence of what happens if I stop paying my taxes, what happens if I stop paying my mortgage, what happens if I take my children out of brainwashing and mind-numbing schools. You know, these are the things that everyday people are having to reconcile right now. And it's one of the major elements that allows us to continue to move forward in this direction with much more momentum and speed is the ability of us all as individuals to be able to once and for all reconcile and release that fear. Release those fears of consequence and release those fears of what could happen if I stand in my truth. You know, when we stand in our truth and when we do it collectively and when we support each other, we show through our example that there really is nothing to fear, ever, and that it is part of the control and it is part of the programming. Mel, you were going to mention, it sounded like you had something you wanted to say, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share on any of the points that we've covered off on. I will also want to give the audience here an opportunity to ask questions. Does anybody in the room, but before I do, actually, Mel, if you have anything that you want to share in regards to any of this, by all means, the floor is yours.
Yeah, sure. There was a very good point. There's actually so many things there that I've picked up on and want to comment on. Firstly, Bob mentioned, or we asked what everybody can do to contribute to, and I will get to that in a second because that's very important. But just to add to something Sacha was saying there, and it's been a while since I've actually heard someone go into the whole, you know, we are programmed by the time paradigm, because this is not very well covered ground, and it's such an important one to actually be aware of. Many people who have looked at this information will have a basic understanding of symbolism and symbology. And if you just look, for example, at the face of a clock, having the, as Sacha said, the 60 seconds with the 12, but it's also, there's another division that goes on. There's the vertical and the horizontal cross, which are divided up into 3 and 4. And this is very much the same as the cross of the zodiac, which is the oldest conceptual image known to man. And this is also where you get the Maltese cross, which goes into the circle. And if you're into theosophical symbolism, you'll know a little bit about Blavatsky talking about the circle and the point in the center being the start source of all creation. And when you start looking at how these things interlayer onto each other, again, I love it when Sacha talks, because it's exactly what it is. We are so programmed by all of this on so many multiple layers and levels. And it's a multi-layer, multi-sensory symbolic programming that we're not even aware of. So I'm so pleased Sacha's changing his time signature. I look forward to that one. Hopefully we can start all wearing New Earth watches and marching to a different beat.
Nice one. Well, actually, Mel, the consideration is really... I raised this last year in Amsterdam. You may or may not recall. I didn't particularly take root with anyone. I was trying to get a panel of experts at one point to engage on a premise which to my mind is of critical import if we're to break this Gordian knot and transcend this white noise of the Babylonian confusion that we're all kind of entrenched in. And that is a singular recognition that time and money and fear are exactly the same thing. Not just the same value, they're actually the same thing. There is no separation between time, money, or fear. And I think when we actually get that, sit with that thought, walk around that, it's so empowering once we recognize that time, money, and fear is the triangulation that has caused this dream spelling.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously just to finish off with what I was going to say with what everybody can do, you know, it doesn't take a lot. I met Lisa sort of really when she started doing this before she got into OPPT, and I've probably known Lisa longer than anyone else here, I think. But I got to know Lisa and I understood her, a mom of 3, and I got to know some of the people that I've worked with around the world, the various journalists, the various people, you know, Sacha. There's just, to me, there occurs to me that it doesn't take You don't have to have huge amounts of money and resources to be able to reach out and make a difference. You know, everybody has a different purpose. Everybody has a different path. Everyone has a different plan. But the most important thing to understand is here and now, this time, the purpose we've chosen when coming into this life is to make this world a better place. That's it. That's, for me, is the common denominator amongst everybody that I am coming into contact now. And understand that if before anything else, find that purpose within yourself, and you'll find what it is you're meant to be doing to contribute to creating what it is we need to create in order to have this free, fair, just, sustainable world that we also desperately know can exist.
Awesome. Beautiful. Does anybody have any questions they want to come up and ask either Mel or Sacha? Lisa Harrison, maybe? Or do you want me to just ask it? Hold on, I got a question coming for you guys.
Hi, my name is Ed. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Ed.
All of this, you are stating some wonderful things. As a member of the audience, I'm sitting here visualizing, okay, what am I going to do tomorrow? All these wonderful things are about to come. And that I may very likely be able to be a part of. I envision that and something. But tomorrow, what is my touch point? Is it just personally declaring my freedom from fear?
Good place to start.
Do you understand what I'm trying to get across?
Yes, totems and the need to extricate yourself from totems. One of the biggest totems is money, and that is again hangs over human beings principally in the fear context through something called taxation, which is the opposite of what the totem of money should be, which is a totem of prosperity and abundance. And the business of paying taxes fundamentally is something we all have control over. So consider that. Look closely at how you are engaging in feeding that Babylonian complex through literally paying for it. That's one. The declaration of sovereignty is an important one. The need to begin to look at your birth bond and understand your bonded slavery, and to begin to challenge the relevant so-called authorities, none of which are authorities. They are all, again, interposed. They are all of them in treason and in derogation and abrogation of every form of law known to humanity. So standing in that light and really standing up and feeling empowered just in becoming aware is hugely important. I would sit with that for a while until that becomes your nature, so that when you walk out the door, you actually carry that power, that majesty, that clarity, that noble expression. So it's not just a kind of, a feeling that you inspire yourself for a day or two and then go back into the rat race. I would say don't feel that you need to go out and make a change tomorrow in the explicit world. Rather, really hold this energy of becoming awakened within, and really investigate that beautiful inner scape, that inner landscape which will emerge, because that is the subspace place where the new light, the new fifth dimensional, however you want to look at it, the new celestine energies are able to fill this world through the inner spaces that we create within the human heart. Don't let go of that. It's not so much about us getting on the streets and throwing rocks at the castle. It's more about us apprehending the fact that it's an inner transformative process, more so than it is an external process. I don't know if I've got across clearly there.
No, you did, Sacha. I'm really glad that you said that, because we're actually getting ready to have a discussion after this call on sovereignty, self-governance, and the one people. And, you know, one of the things we're going to be talking about is how sovereignty, what it truly is a state of being.
Bravo.
You know, you declare your sovereignty and then you be in your sovereignty. And when enough people declare their sovereignty and they be in that space and they allow their external reality to be created from that space from within, then the world changes very quickly. You know, and it's just a matter of being in that mindset. I think there's a lot of people that you know, they really want to, you know, myself included. What are my next action steps? You know, I'm constantly calling all you guys. We're constantly trying to set up these discussions because it represents a form of action and conversations that need to be had. And we're all at various levels of our own growth and of our own understanding. And each one is in its own state of utter perfection when we step back and stop judging it, and when we just allow everything to be, but don't continue to, like you said, pay energy into the things that are no longer serving us. You know, it's just, it does not work. We cannot continue to fund that which is holding us back. And that's what we involuntarily do when we do things such as pay taxes and continue to pay on our credit cards and mortgages. And I realize that some of these things our various family members will find socially unacceptable. But if it is our truth and we know it to be right, then we need to be able to release whatever fear of judgment, fear of chastisement, fear of anything that could potentially occur external as a detriment to how we identify ourselves. Identity is a function of the ego. And so these declarations, these internal declarations, are one of the most important pieces of the puzzle we can all collectively make right now. And being in that space is what spreads that message. Words oftentimes are not even necessary. So I'm really glad that you highlighted the importance of our internal work. And we've proven multiple times over on this tour that if there's always much internal work to be done on so many levels, and it allows us to operate in such greater harmony when we are in that place of understanding that the internal work is what allows us to have an external and manifest external harmony with ourselves and with those that are around us. So thank you for making that point. Mel, did you want to respond to that question as well?
Yeah, I did actually, because I think apart from everything that's going on around us and outside of us, if you're going to make a difference and you're going to step out and you're going to do that from a place of truth, center, and balance, you've got to start also taking care of yourself. Freeing yourself also means freeing yourself from absolutely everything, and that means poisons and toxins, both in information and from food. So my advice to anybody, you're waking up tomorrow morning, you want to do something good for yourself, start the day by starting one day, just for the first day, having a day of eating completely raw and detoxing all the rubbish from your system, because that actually causes a lot of emotional, energetic, and spiritual blocks. And the information and things you can perceive intuitively are actually blocked by a lot of the stuff that we put into our system. So, start from the basics. One of my favorite things that I learned from Heather Tucci Giraffe was always start with what you know. And where do we start if we want to do anything? We've got to have good health before we can do anything. So start there. And, it goes out saying good health comes a little bit of exercise, but also with, managing stress and a fair amount of what I call spiritual and emotional maturity, allowing that to evolve and doing the work, going within, going through the fire, not judging yourself too harshly, accepting that we all are awfully flawed individuals, and that's okay. And coming to understand and accept yourself, because we've been taught by media and society to hate ourselves, that, we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're not this enough, because if we are, we can't be sold to, we cannot be marketed to, we cannot be made to buy the crap that we don't need. So that's, for me, the two things that you can start doing immediately is deprogramming yourself and reprogramming your body and systems with good food, because that, let me tell you, is the core for absolutely everything else you want to go out there and do. Some of the people that I've worked with, and I can pick up energetically when they've been eating poorly, because it actually affects their ability to deal with things on an emotional level. So it affects every level of your existence. So that would be my first place to start for anybody immediately wanting to make a difference. You're not going to go out there and free everybody tomorrow, but certainly start by freeing your own body and your own mind from the pharmaceutical crap and poisoning that's in food.
Beautiful. Awesome. I think we have another question here for you guys. You want to come on?
I get the spiritual part of it. I don't get the paperwork part of it. Okay? Because when you get pulled over and you got to deal with the matrix, whatever you want to call it, you have to know how to handle them. So, how do you do that?
Correct. Well, you have to give us the scenario, because there's going to be about 12 million different scenarios. Which one are you talking about? And let's look at it. Let's drill into it. But I mean, it's not really the question. The question is one of fear or fearlessness. And which side of the equation are you orienting your spiritual dimension and your noble expression? Because wherever you cast your mind, the body will follow. So it's really not about what the particular event is. All of us are subject to the harvest of innocence right now. We are each of us part of a culling process. Our family, our loved ones, our friends are all being culled systematically and systemically right now by the behemoth that we have allowed into being because of that paralysis that we keep imposing on ourselves. And I've had this on a number of occasions when I've been apprehended by police. I was pulled over, Mel, on my way to Amsterdam last year, the conference. That night, I was trying to get to Amsterdam in a car. I'd been driving from London, and I was stopped by 3 squad cars, guys with guns. And, I ended up, they thought I was some rich drug dealer carrying stuff in the boot of the car because I had long hair, and I was going pretty fast. I wasn't exactly breaking the limit. It was late at night. In any event, the bottom line is when they did stop me and I refused to get out the car, refused to comply with them, spoke to them very politely, put them all on notice and explained to them they had one of 2 options: pull the trigger, kill me, in which case they had a shitstorm ahead of them, or listen very, very keenly to what I had to say through 2 inches of my window being rolled down. And I began to explain to these Dutch police, these gentlemen, and a couple of police women, the law. Well, 15, 20 minutes later, I was out the car under umbrellas with them, huddled around the engine. They were sat around me like it was beautiful. I was giving them a full tutorial on law, and they loved it. They didn't know that they were breaking every known natural law. They didn't know that I could mount a private prosecution and have them for, rendition, kidnap, deception, fraud, treason. They didn't know any of that. But after 20 minutes, they did. And I'll tell you, the air of relief amongst these 11 or 12 police that had all come around that night in the rain on the side of the street was a beautiful exchange. So to the gentleman who's just raised the point, I'm simply trying to raise an idea in your mind here. That is that whatever the event is that you need to deal with, whatever the little psycho-intellectual knot is that a policeman or an official or some other dunce in a uniform in front of you is trying to present to you, just deal with it with your heart and deal with it with your living intelligence, and you will find the words. It's not going to take you more than 2 or 3 days of sitting down and actually reading up on free man, common law, and the fundamental principles behind sovereignty. It's all out there. I'll tell you for nothing that we're launching in 3 weeks' time the New Earth Law Academy online as part of the New Earth portal that we're putting out as part of our supranational structure. And that Law Academy is going to be giving tutorials and workshops 7 days a week on all of these aspects, as well as giving out all the relevant reading material and links and blogs and all the rest of it. So stay tuned to that. But I would say that if you're in your heart, you can turn a negative situation into a very beautiful experience for both sides.
Beautiful.
I just wanted to agree with what you said. You don't need to become an expert in the convoluted uniform commercial code. You don't have to be an expert in admiralty law, but you do need to understand your rights as a sovereign being and natural law, which is very simple. You know, natural and common law is very simple. If there's no victim, there's no crime. There's no damages, you know, that can be proven. There is no crime. Understanding those common principles, common law and trust law, are like Sacha said. You can study the basic principles in 3 days. Understanding those principles and where you stand under natural law. Anything else that abrogates that, you don't really need to know the statutes and codes. All you need to know is your rights and sovereignty as a natural, you know, sovereign being.
And to dovetail on that, I had you guys muted. The example he used was, you know, if I take my tags off my car tomorrow, then what? And I actually don't have tags on my car. Good. I don't have automobile insurance, and I drive around in a state of absolute fearlessness because that's a choice that I've made. You know, with things like that, you have two choices: fear or fearlessness. Fearlessness represents letting go of whatever potential consequences may result as a function of you standing in your own truth and your own knowingness, and allowing the chips to fall where they may, and not paying any worry energy into what could happen if you get pulled over or if you get stopped. And standing in that is the most liberating thing I can taking those tags off my car and stopping my insurance and stopping paying taxes and challenging my car note and stopping paying my credit card has been the biggest tools on a physical level that have allowed me to experience such emotional and spiritual growth from within, because I know my truth, I stand in it, and I just don't give a shit anymore when it comes to worrying about it.
Beautiful, Brian. I love it. You know, there's one better that you can do. If you don't want to remove your tags altogether, just put a copyright symbol on the actual registration plates on the front and back. Use a black felt tip pen and just put a very bold copyright symbol by the number. The police are not able to use any photographic evidence of that because you've effectively copyrighted it. So if they send photographs, that's actually worked in the court of law. So there are all sorts of tricks you can use to play the system if you want to. But I would agree with Brian that going all the way and just not engaging is arguably the best way forward.
That's a lot more creative than my approach, which is just to leave the factory plates on my car, and it just looks like I'm driving around in a new car and nobody messes with me. Yeah. Excellent. I mean, good question, and we get that a lot on our radio shows. And releasing fear is one of the biggest hurdles. Truly letting it go. Truly saying at any time that fear is an illusion of the mind. It's a construct, and we can liberate ourselves from it simply with an act of choice. And it's not supposed to be easy, but it will only be as difficult as we make it individually. So with that being said, I know we're coming up on the end of the hour here. I have a message that I want to send out. Mel, I know you're recording this. This is going to go out. First and foremost, I want to thank you both for your time, for your energy, for your service, and for your love, and for your willingness to step forward and to embrace this message of unity. Here we are synchronistically in the Unity Church, talking about unity. And I just want to send the message out to everyone that listens to this. Look, we are working together. We are letting go of our differences. It is time to unite, and it is time to unite now. Done. Let's do this. And I'm just so grateful to you both, deepest pals. Let's keep the discussion going, and let's make this happen. And let's not wait another generation to do it. Let's do it right now. Thank you guys. Really appreciate your time and your energy. I love you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks to you guys. Love you all. Bye.
Talk soon, guys.
Take care, guys.